So the first half of Season 9 has finished with 8 episodes, 9 if you're technical, which means we have another 8 to look forward to for the fall time. If the quality keeps up with these latter half, then this will most likely take the spot as my favorite season. Not my fault that it's so good. But while we wait, we have Dusk of Death Battle to hold us over and way more than enough time to speculate. So I thought it'd be fun to predict what matches are going to happen. First off, this is not a wish list. I'm predicting what I think will happen. And that doesn't mean I'm going to be throbbing at the mouth for each matchup. Multiple episodes on this list I would be hyped for, but I'm not going to die if they don't happen. I'm going to be talking about the matchup, the animation potential, who I think would win, animation style, and more in each segment. I don't really have a reason to, I just want to. I don't have much else to say besides, let's just get into it. Oh, I almost forgot. We do apparently know the mid-season premiere, but I know a majority of people don't. If you don't want to be spoiled, either click off or skip here. Alright? Cool? Okay. Spoilers in 3, 2, 1. So this was supposedly confirmed at RTX. I wasn't there, but everyone who was said they confirmed it. That episode is James Bond versus John Wick. This actually kind of caught me off guard. I'm glad we're getting more novel and movie reps, but this was a match I was not expecting them to do. But I'm not gonna lie, I'm really excited. I'm planning on seeing some of their movies during the summer to get ready for the episode even. I do think both have better, James Bond versus Jason Bourne and John Wick versus Agent 47 respectively, but I don't really care. It's gonna be cool to see James's spyware match up against John's more down-to-earth weapons and tactics. Apparently this episode was also confirmed to be sprites. I kinda wish it was live action, but I do think this match can work in sprites. I think it allows for better fight potential. There could be a scene where James uses his stealth to hide from John as John hunts him down. There could be a car chase scene at the beginning with both of their vehicles. And there's potential for a Snake vs. Sam-like ending with a final fight, both knowing only one will make it out alive. As far as I know for who wins, I don't really know. I think they might be compositing Bond, but I don't know how that changes the debate. But from what I've gathered, James has the better tech and gadgets while John has the better skills and weaponry. I think that'll be pretty cool to see in the fight. So this one's up in the air. But if I had a gun to my head, I'd probably vote for John. I'm honestly really excited for this one. Death Battle is definitely going to have another Marvel vs. DC matchup this year. There's at least 2 every season, and these series are practically a second nature for the show. In my opinion, there are 4 big ones that have good chances this year. Those being Black Cat vs. Catwoman, Mysterio vs. Scarecrow, Black Adam vs. Apocalypse, and Ant-Man vs. the Atom. Honestly, I think I can rule out the first 2 pretty easily as we've already had a Batman villain fight this year, so that just leaves the other 2. In my opinion, they're both equally likely. Ant-Man vs. the Atom is like the biggest Marvel vs. DC match they haven't done yet, and Black Adam vs. Apocalypse has heavy support behind it with Biff Weed and a bunch of others wanting it. Honestly, I think I might prefer Black Adam vs. Apocalypse, so I'll just go with that one. But both are even in terms of chance. The fight has to take place in an Egypt-like area, but I hope it's not like Jotaro vs. Kenshiro or the DBX where they're just in the middle of nowhere. It could take place in an Egyptian city, with one rolling over it as the other barges in wanting to claim the throne. They can make a giant storm over the area for tension, sell Black Adam as being a heavy-hitter speedster and Apocalypse as a big tough brute, and have them chuck a pyramid at the other, I don't know. There's a lot of potential for the track too. It could make for a great lyrical track, but if not, I would hope for a big booming orchestra and a powerful score, with some desert-like tunes thrown in there for good measure. As for animation style, I can really only see this episode working in sprites. 3D and other styles just don't really fit well for this matchup in my opinion. I would definitely be hyped for this, as much as other big Death Battle creators would be. But who do I think wins? Well, I haven't really looked into the matchup, but I'll just go with Black Adam as I'm more familiar with him. We haven't had any cartoon matchups yet, and like Marvel vs. DC, I think there are multiple likely possibilities, being 3 this time. Mordecai and Rigby vs. Finn and Jake, Jenny XJ9 vs. Robot Boy, and Peter vs. Homer. I would probably be equally excited for all of these. Well, maybe not as much Jenny vs. Robot Boy, as it would be another action cartoon matchup, and I would prefer a more traditional cartoon matchup. But it still has a pretty good chance of happening, and I'd be excited for it. As for the other two, both have only really started getting popular pretty recently, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me if I'm wrong. But Peter vs. Homer arguably has more legacies to it, so I'll go with that one for the list. This show's rivalry is so intense that it might even be on the kind of level of matches like Mario vs. Sonic and Mickey vs. Bugs. There isn't as much fight potential, but there's a plethora of comedy potential. I kind of hope it feels like an episode of the shows. I would want even cutaway gags in the animation to make it feel complete. You could have so many comedic jokes here, and the fight's sheer legacy would already be a drawing in point. Homer used to be the Greed Pod winner, but now I hear it's fairly even. Homer probably still wins, but I've only seen like one episode of The Simpsons, so I'd root for Peter. But honestly, I wouldn't care who won. Seeing Wiz and Boomstick talk about these shows would already be enough for me. For animation style, I would prefer hand-drawn, but given Omnilander took that spot, I would be fine with sprites. You know, I think this is the year. I think we're finally gonna get horror movie characters on this show. I know this is going to age like some old-ass milk, but whatever. Predator technically counts as a horror rep, but I've always seen those movies as more sci-fi action rather than horror. There's lots of potential for a horror movie fight, like Chucky vs. Slappy. But I think there are two very big contenders that are just waiting to be done. Those being Jason Voorhees vs. Michael Myers and Freddy Krueger vs. Pennywise. Jason vs. Michael needs to be live action, and it doesn't really sound like we're getting one this year. But it's a massive rivalry and legacy matchup that I'm surprised hasn't been done yet. Freddy vs. Pennywise isn't as big a legacy fight as the former, but it makes up for it in sheer potential. Starting with Jason vs. Michael, I would probably prefer this one over the latter, as I would just love to see the two fight. I want the fight to be more eerie and silent instead of over-the-top and action-packed. Make the fight focused on stealth. You could have a scene where they stab each other and then look in confusion over the lack of reaction. You could have a moment where one randomly disappears as we have a tense search as the two hide from each other. And you could have a genuinely creepy death where the loser has no way of winning anymore, but the winner tortures the other with a slow and painful death. We've gone too long without this fight. It needs to be the next live action one. Now, Freddy vs. Pennywise would still be an eerie battle, but it would be way more action and a bit more over the top and a little cartoonish here and there. You could have a kaiju fight with Giant Freddy in Pennywise's spider form. Pennywise could turn into many different monsters as Freddy morphs his body in wacky ways. And you need to have a build-up where the winner successfully scares the loser and tortures them with their fear before killing them off. As for who wins each, Jason would probably win his match, and Pennywise wipes the floor with Freddy. Krueger just doesn't really have any good options to take him down for good. If there's not a horror movie match this year, then they'll probably do something like Nemesis vs. Pyramid Head, which I would be fine with. But I'll put Freddy vs. Pennywise on the list, as I don't think we'll be getting a live-action fight this year. Also, my dad really wants Freddy Krueger on Death Battle, so this would make him happy. Both sprites and 3D could work for it, in my opinion. We usually have a fighting game matchup every year, and I think this season will be no different. The big one they haven't done yet is Liu Kang vs. Jago. This is a pretty standard one in terms of matchup and potential, but I would really enjoy it. I'd hope the fight would focus on pure martial arts with a little bit of fire magic thrown into the fray. Even without his god forms, I'm pretty sure Liu Kang takes it, but I might be wrong. This is on a similar situation to the last one where both sprites and 3D could work great. I didn't have too much to say on this one as the others, so let's just move on. Do I even need to say why I think this match will happen? One member of the crew asked the subreddit what their most wanted match was, and they picked this. Minions 2 came out with massive publicity due to the memes, and Megamind has been the most popular he's been since this movie came out, And we got a show coming soon. And the fight has massive legacy and rivalry. It's still up in the air, but I think we still have a really good chance of getting it this year. I'm not that big a fan of Despicable Me, and I've only seen a bit of Megamind, but I would be so excited for this if it got announced. We are in dire need of animated movie characters on the show, and Iron Fist vs. Poe proved that we could do those characters extremely well. And the potential for the fight, banter, and character moments easily makes this the perfect candidate for the next episode. The fight could start off with one stealing an artifact with the other busting in trying to take it from them. You could have an army battle with minions and brainbots, a moment where Megamind uses the satellite laser to destroy the place they're fighting at, and have them bring out more advanced tech for the second half. I'd hope the fight would start out as their more villainous selves as they gradually start showing their more heroic sides. Hell, there could even be a mercy death. Or at least one with respect. This is yet another fight where it could work in 3D or sprites, but honestly I think sprites would work better. I'm pretty sure Megamind is the agreed upon winner, so I'll just go with him. We've barely had any video game representation this season. The only character we had was Jinx for the season premiere, so we're probably gonna get another video game matchup this season. At least I hope. And again, there's two big possibilities. I have a lot to say on the second one, so I'll just talk about the first one real quick. And spoiler, I think this one is more likely. Cole McGrath versus Alex Mercer. The amount of legacy this matchup has is insane. It has been requested since the very early seasons, and the rivalry is really solid. People are still clamoring for it to this day. The only confusing thing about it is how they'll handle Cole's multiple endings, but I'm sure they'll find a way. People say the fight would need to be 3D, but honestly, I think it could work in sprites too. I'd hope the fight focuses on traversal and their powers affecting each other and the people around them. I'd want a more dark and subtle yet catchy track with an atmosphere of the fight reflecting that. I'm pretty sure Cole stomps, which is good because I'm rooting for him. I'm putting this as my prediction, which is for a few reasons I'll explain in the tangent of the next matchup I wanted to talk about. Now, the second matchup. Ultra Guy made a blog a while ago on one of these characters, which kind of deconfirmed it, but I'm still slightly hopeful for it to happen. You may already know what I'm talking about, but if you don't, it's Bowser versus Dr. Eggman. Bowser is one of my most favorite fictional characters of all time from my most favorite fictional series of all time. And Eggman is my favorite Sonic character. I want this fight so much from how much it would make me happy to see these characters again. Both are really deserving for comebacks for different reasons. Eggman for how old his episode was, and Bowser for how dirty he got done in his episode. Out of all the episodes I predicted, this one would make me the most happy if it got announced. And yes, it's very unlikely due to that blog, but it makes sense due to the release of the movies coming out. I can really only see this fight working in sprites. One, because these two I don't think could work well in a 3D fight, especially with a way smaller budget than that of Nintendo's and Sega's. And two, because Bowser's sprite from Inside Story is one of the best sprite models ever made. The 1 minute melee was already extremely good and highlighted exactly what I wanted out of these characters. Very badass villains who are also a little cartoonish and silly at times. I'd hope the fight is more character driven, not to the level of Omnilander, but I hope there's just a little bit of something, you know? I'd love to see an army fight, a giant battle with Fury Bowser versus the Death Egg Robot, and while they probably won't use stuff like Dreamy Bowser and the Time Eater, they would definitely be cool to see. The fight could start out with Bowser trying to conquer the Mushroom Kingdom as Eggman intervenes and says that he should be the rightful ruler of it, and establish that they already know each other like Batman vs. Iron Man. This could be where the army battle takes place as Eggman sends out his badniks as Bowser brings out his minions. Bowser could be absolutely bodying Eggman before he sends out Metal Sonic to go buy himself time to get better machines. I'd hope for a scene where Bowser just rips Metal Sonic in half. That would just be cool to see. The fight would come down to a lake or something as Eggman crashes Bowser's ship. And this is where Bowser turns into Fury Bowser after Eggman thinks he's dead, which causes Eggman to bring out the Death Egg robot. And then after a massive scale battle, we get a cool fake out with the Eggman Death Laser or whatever it's called before Bowser grabs the robot and tears it to shreds, leaving just Eggman as he quickly tries to make amends with Bowser before he throws him up in the air and burns him up to a crisp with his fire. Finally, after a tough fight, Bowser looks upon his minions watching from afar, cheering for his victory as Bowser roars triumphantly. That is how I think the fight would go. And as you can tell, I think Bowser wins. If you gave Eggman stuff like the Time Eater, you would have to give Bowser stuff like the Dreamstone, which is equal if not more levels of bullshit. And Bowser's stats go way beyond what Eggman is capable of. Sure, his mechs are tough, but without them, he's just a normal guy, so yeah. Bowser would need this dub, man. He got so disrespected in his last episode, and he needs to get that win he truly deserves. It would make me so happy. That's not to downplay Eggman, though. I still love his character. But the Mario series is super important to me, and many of its characters are my favorite of all time. I'll probably talk more about that some other time, but I feel this section is dragging on, so let's just lock it up. Unfortunately, like I said multiple times, I don't think we're getting this episode this year. So, I'm putting Cole vs. Alex here, but Bowser vs. Eggman would get the biggest reaction out of me that any episode has in a long time. And with that, we're on to the finale. Predicting the finale is tricky, as it really could be anything. But there is one matchup that I think has the highest chance. That being Boss Baby versus Springtrap. Kyle Rayner versus Simone the Digger. I know Nemesis said that he wanted this to happen next year so his friend could see it, and I really hope he gets that, but I don't know what else to put here. This match has so much backing it up. Originally it was a spite match, but people still want it even after the community agreed that Kyle won. I don't know much about either character, but after hearing the kind of bullshit these two could do, I would definitely look forward to this. Hell, I might even watch Gurren Lagann in preparation for it. I'd hope for more creative uses of the landing ring and lots of Simon's drillers or whatever they're called to be used. And of course, lots of destruction. I hope they don't go the Hulk vs. Broly approach of them just resetting the universe through a headbutt battle. I want to see the universe get destroyed, damn it! This would probably be a hybrid like Saitama vs. Popeye with multiple different animation styles, mostly starting out in sprites. Though I don't know how they would do 3D. I don't really have a lot to say about this due to lack of personal connection, but just know I would be excited for it. And that's my list. Here it is in simple form. With all the matchups I put on here, that would bring in 11 new series, which would definitely fit with the whole new series gimmick of this season. And that would make the new series count be 18. 19 if you don't count the Boys Battle Royale. Now, probably none of these matches will happen this season, except for the first one obviously, but it would be really cool if even just one I got correct. We have until September, maybe early August, until we get a glimpse of what's to come. So now all we have to do is wait. But thank you so much for listening to me ramble about Bowser vs. Eggman and a bunch of other matchups. Really, thank you. Here's to the rest of Season 9. I hate writing outros.
Well, if it isn't Sussy Jack.
Bro, are you high?
Let me check. Yes.